Nick. Hello.
Hello, Anastasia. It's lovely to see you. You're looking very well, especially given you are currently in tennis paradise.
That is good to know. And I think it is the weather and just the air and the scenery around, because this is my second cup of coffee. Yay. Um, and it's not even 10 a.m. And it's not even 10
I'm not
a.m.
surprised, given you were texting me about the podcast at around just before 8 a.m. my time, which for you must have been midnight or even 1 a.m. in California.
Yeah. It's definitely been go, go, go over the last 4 days here. But I'm having so much fun. It's a lot of work, but I think I've been saying this: when you're doing what you want to do, it doesn't feel like work. It just seems like it's exciting. But we haven't welcomed everyone. Welcome, guys, to the podcast. Welcome to Ground Pass. And welcome to a special edition of this podcast, because guess what? We're on site. We're here. We're at an event.
This is a strong definition of we, he says very jealously.
Nick, it's, I see it. I see the vision, and it's going to be we. We're just going to travel these events, and it's going to be great, and introduce people to this beautiful sport of tennis and seeing it live in person. But I think coming to this event, coming to Indian Wells, because this is my first time at Indian Wells, I haven't been to this event before, it definitely solidified a lot of what I think I love about what we do in Ground Pass and what I would like it to be, which is help introduce the casual fan to tennis and get them more interested and sort of excited about the sport and coming to see it live, which I think is the best way. I've seen so many live matches of players I had never watched before, and has completely changed my thought about them. But I think you have some questions for me. Ask away.
I do. Before that, I wanted to. It's kind of around the experience, anyway. And I guess what I kind of wanted to start off with, as you're saying, you've experienced a lot of players, seeing players you haven't seen before. How easy is it to do that at Indian Wells compared to the US Open, which is probably the other big event you have opportunities for?
Yeah, I think it actually is easier here at Indian Wells. Not so much. Here's what I'll say. For all of these big tournaments, the first week is definitely the week to come if you want to see the most matches and the most players, because as the weekend arrives and we get into the second week, it just gets harder to get onto courts on the weekend because, of course, everyone's here. It's a busy, venue, and everyone is off of work, and then they can come and see some matches. But I think if you're strategic about it and if you plan ahead, it actually is easier. I think maybe in Indian Wells and maybe a tournament like Miami, for example, to see some players who you've never seen before and like almost take a little bit of a leap of faith. That happened to me yesterday when I went to go see Jessica Bagula and Anna Blinkova play. I was just interested because we all know Blinkova was involved in one of the most exciting matches this year that went to that sort of 2020. It was 22-20, I think was the tie break.
22 points to 20.
Scoreline. Yeah, that she had against Elena Rybakina. So I just wanted to go see. I was like, oh, let me see. I had watched some of her matches on TV, but, seeing her in person, the way she hits a ball, the sound of the ball coming off her racket, you're like, it was just so crisp, just so good. And she's so energetic and so focused. And I actually got to talk to her in press afterwards. For everyone who doesn't know, I'm here at the event, covering the event for Talking Tennis, our friends over at Talking Tennis. I'll leave a link in the description to their YouTube channel. But I got to talk to her in press, and it then informs the sort of idea that you have of a player. You see them in person, you see how they hit the ball, their energy on court, and then you hear what they have to say in a press conference. So I'm going to include a clip of her press conference here just so that you can get an idea of who she is. And I think that's the fun part of coming to the events is I'm so sure she made some new fans for sure here.
For me, it's very important to think the right things and to tell myself the right things. And I tried to believe in every single moment. Even when I lost the second set, I understood that I was not missing much. I made more mistakes than in the first set, but I was not missing by far. And I realized that I can do it. And I was telling myself until the end that I can do it. And I tried to give my best on every single point. I like to repeat to myself that I cannot do better than my best. And and I just and I was telling myself that I should not have regrets in the end of the match. I'll give everything, I'll have no regrets, and the result does not depend completely on me.
I watched that match last night. I shouldn't have done. I shouldn't have stayed up so late to watch it because I had places to be on Sunday morning. But I definitely I watched it because I saw the first set score and I was like, oh, Pegula's in trouble. And then watching it, and Blinkova was crushing that ball at points. Like Pegula was holding up as well as she could and pretty well at points. She made it a really competitive match. But I think Blinkova did see it out a lot more confidently than she did against Rybakina in Australia. But that's kind of the first point I had. It's like, yeah, I saw that as well, and it doesn't surprise me. By the way, if you do click the Talking Tennis link, most of the most recent videos are the press conference audios that Anastasia has been to, and you can hear her quizzing the players. But I wanted to kind of...
And actually, Nick, I know you said earlier you're not here with me, but you assisted me a little bit at the Iga press conference where I was in a brain fog and I WhatsApped you and I said, "Do you have a question for Iga?" And you were like, and you sent me one and I asked her and she answered it.
Yeah,
It was so
that was
good.
really surreal because when you said and you have questions for Iga, and I went blank and went, no, no. Like I get to ask Iga a question by proxy. I mean, okay, but yeah, she did. She
But
had
it
a
was a
really good
good
answer to it.
question and yeah, she gave a really good answer, and I will put the clip of that answer here because that was your question, and it was a good response.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we try to watch and analyze, and since I started, working with my coach, the one that I'm working with right now, Tomasz Wiktorowski, he has a really good eye and really good perspective on tennis. And when we started watching matches, I just felt like I can learn tactically much more and then use it on court. So I remember having a few players that I didn't like playing against, and then I started to, be more comfortable and win against them. So yeah, for sure, his help is a lot.
Yeah, I appreciated the response that she gave. Actually, there's a couple of follow-on questions that I kind of thought about ahead of this podcast, but I think we're talking about this now, so let's get onto it. What has the difference been for you? A little bit of maybe a very self-centered question here, but what has the difference been for you attending a tournament as part of the media versus being a fan?
Very different, and it's funny because I have a very close comparison. So last year on my own, it was just something I wanted to do. I worked up for it, and I went to the US Open every single day last year. If you go back in time to some of the streams on Talking Tennis, especially their last ball drop, you'll see that there's a little vlog that I did for everyone because I went every single day. And going as a fan every day definitely is, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of matches, but I was a little bit more sort of focused on one thing, which was just watching tennis. I would go to the practices, I would go watch tennis, I would, sort of just enjoy the scenery of the day. coming as press is a little bit different because it's a bit of work. I am trying to at least attend all the press conferences to, follow up on post matches or the pre-tournament press and stuff like that. I'm still watching tennis, so that's great. But I will say the thing about coming as press is your experience of the matches is a little bit more, it's richer in a way. And I hope that's something that we at Ground Pass can help provide to our listeners, because it's sort of, you watch a match and then you have a question. So let's take Aryna Sabalenka's match yesterday, which was against Peyton Stearns. I mean, just chef kiss of a match. It was phenomenal. It was fun. It was exciting. There was tension. I mean, it had everything. It had everything. And during the match, there were a lot of times that Aryna would be in a full stretch and, on the splits and on the run. And there was actually one moment where she kind of rolled her ankle a little bit, but she popped right back up. She kind of like did some flexes and stuff. And it seemed like she was fine. And in press, I thought, well, I'll ask her, what was that like? Like, does she practice doing the splits for moments like that? And, it's so funny because she kind of got into a little bit of a split. So if you hear the press conference, the whole room just starts laughing because I asked the question and then she just kicks her leg up, which was hilarious. She is fun. Exactly. It's such an Aryna thing to do, but she's really fun. But then her answer to the question was yes, she does work on sort of injury prevention through flexibility. And that just informed more to me. It was more informative after watching the match to say, oh, this is what she's doing. So I like coming as press because it's great because you get these like little tidbits and it kind of informs the whole match. But again, I just love tennis. So sometimes I would just want to be watching tennis and they'll be like, Novak Djokovic is, that happened to me yesterday. I was in the middle of a match and I get the text message that Novak's going to be in press. And I just said, I'm not going to go. I'm going to miss that one.
I'm sure John from Talking Tennis would be thrilled to hear that you did not give him Novak Djokovic content.
He will. He already got some. Yeah, he already got some from me. I think I scared John a little bit because he's like, you're filming like a lot. You're getting like a lot. And I'm like, have you met me?
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, no, we haven't actually met you,
but I love it.
Anastasia.
This is true. This is true.
But it's okay because you just put it all on Ground Pass instead.
Yay.
Which we appreciate. So those of you hopefully you are listening to us and you are subscribed to our social media. But Anastasia's mini pods, which you probably be getting in a podcast feed anyway, the little clips that she's been uploading to our Instagram, absolutely brilliant. If you follow on Twitter, she's got like little tidbits on the matches she's just watched. It's really, really good follow. I think it's something that I would have appreciated. Or I still actually appreciate that someone is trying to follow everything that's going on, because what I usually try and curate my social media for any fans who like want to keep up to date, because that's what I usually use Twitter for, is what on earth is happening. That's what we want to be here for anyway. But let's talk about it. So obviously with these social media posts, you're kind of giving us an idea of a little bit of a taster, a sort of a tease of what it's like at Indian Wells. If one of our listeners asked you to plan their day at Indian Wells, whether it's this tournament or next tournament, how would you curate it?
That is a very good question. And it's kind of, I think I've been a little bit of a broken record on some of the mini pods because I keep saying, you just have to plan out your day. You must plan out your day. But it's important to plan out the day, but also be flexible enough that if things change, like, for example, if Milos Raonic decides to withdraw, you can pivot and you can do something else. But if I was going to plan your day at Indian Wells, I would say, definitely come early. I think the first thing, so the gates open up, matches start at 11. Gates on the first day, I think, opened up at 9:30. Sometimes they open at 10. So you get kind of an hour and a half to an hour before matches start. I would say if you're planning a day at Indian Wells, I would come early, and I would definitely be here that early so that you can watch some practices before the match play starts. So during the first couple of days, there were just tons of practices. There were practices all the time. Novak, Carlos Alcaraz, all that stuff. As the tournament has gone on, they've reduced a little bit as people, of course, as players also get eliminated from the tournament. One thing I will say, though, a lot of players hang around at Indian Wells. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently, I mean, they do just love it here. It is beautiful. I cannot, fault them for that. So they just stay and they practice. But come early, go see some practices, and then that frees you up during the rest of the day to go to different matches and stuff. I would definitely plan your lunch schedule. I would say bring snacks because yesterday, as I saw, everyone decides to have lunch at the same time, which is around 1 o'clock. And if you also try to do that, you will be stuck in a line that is 30 minutes long or more. And you do not want to do that because then you're just missing tennis. So I think if you have a few snacks with you that can hold you over, and maybe plan your lunch maybe a little later, because I mean, I remember walking around 1 and I was like, I'm not going to be able to eat anything. Like every stall was packed with people. And, but by 2:30, empty. By 2:30, I could have walked up and just gotten food anywhere. So come early, watch some practices, plan out your match schedule, because if you want to see a specific player, it might do you well to arrive at the court at the end of the match before, so that you can get your seat and secure it. I wanted to go see the Gael Monfils and Hubie Hurkacz match, and I went during the end of Casper Ruud's match because I knew it would be packed, and I was right. It was a packed scene. So if you didn't get there early, you kind of had to wait in line until people left and things like that. What other tips can I give you? How else can I plan your day? But yeah, I think those are the main points. If you go to our Instagram, I did like a what's in my bag, in my tournament bag video. I know it's silly sometimes. People are like, oh, what's in my bag? It's silly. It's important. Like having a portable phone charger is great because guess what? If you don't have one and you need to charge your phone, it's $15 to get a portable phone charger here, which is to me a lot because at the US Open it's free. So it's, there are things, I think, if you look at that list of stuff that I packed, it's basically years of going to these tournaments and realizing, oh, I need to be prepared. But yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good, that's exactly what I was looking for, because obviously you can't specify which players, but I think this is a healthy kind of guide that people can take forward. Maybe they're going this week, or we can refer back to in future. Maybe we'll clip it and put it in next year's Indian Wells.
Yes, and it's definitely, I think what I just said is also general enough to any tournament. I'm sure if it's a smaller tournament, you have a little bit more flexibility. But I think if you're going to these 2-week events, this is the idea.
Someone who's only, because where I live, obviously, I don't have the luxury of having a Grand Slam and 3 Masters 1000s in my country. I have.
Whoops.
Yeah, I have. I have a Slam, a 500, and a few 250s, and I've done the 250. I've done a 250 here, and I'd say your court options are a little. Certainly the one I go to, you've only got like 2 or 3 courts at 250. So, albeit the access is probably a little bit different, but I think it's still, yeah, you're right, still very generally useful. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but a ground pass at Indian Wells gets you into everywhere except Stadium 1, is that right? I think Stadium 2 obviously is limited, but yeah.
Right, that is true. And you know, I feel like I'm shilling for us or something. They like get a ground pass, but get a ground pass. Just do it. On the first day, I think the ground pass was $20. Can you imagine watching all of those matches and practices for
I
$20?
think this is the best value ground pass in tennis. And I'm saying this as a Wimbledon fan who loves Wimbledon and thinks that's great value as well. Very similar kind of price, maybe slightly more expensive, more like $30 for a ground pass
Yeah,
at Wimbledon. But it's not as easy to access practice and you don't get stadium access with it. So for that, yeah, great value. And I guess on that,
and it does, it does go up obviously during the week. So I think by the weekend, the ground pass is about like $60. But you are getting sort of like bigger names playing. I get that. But compared to the US Open, I think the cheapest US Open ground pass was almost $150. So I know. So it definitely, you get a lot of value for money. And, if you see some of the videos that I put up, it's like Novak's right there practicing, and you can watch that, and you get to see a lot for sure.
And I guess on this, talk about the experience. Would you say, based on the fact that it's the value for money, but there might be some other things that you haven't mentioned yet that make it appealing, would you say that Indian Wells is the kind of, how close to the ultimate fan experience for Indian Wells would Indian Wells be? And I guess following that up with, do you think it's something that maybe caters itself a little bit more for more seasoned fans, or is it enough of a gateway for people who are fairly recent?
I think, what I did notice for sure, just watching the crowds and comparing it a bit to the US Open, it's definitely an older crowd who seem to be a lot. Okay, this was a very interesting conversation that I overheard. But so on the grounds, there's this like big TV screen. Most like big tournaments have it. It's like the big TV screen showing all the courts and stuff, and it's a lawn area that you can sit. I think it's also cool sometimes, even when you have a ticket, to just take a break, because it can be a lot. So just take a break, sit on the lawn, watch the matches on screen. But I was there and I was overhearing a conversation, and the guy was saying, "Oh, he was like, I can't believe like Fonini is not seated for this event. Isn't that strange?" And I was so, it's definitely an Odal crowd who, for him, Fonini was at one time seated, and I guess he just hasn't been following the tour that much. But so it is definitely an easy older crowd. But as the weekend came around, you got younger people showing up and things like that. I think it is an accessible tournament. Again, I think the price point for ground passes is low enough to be accessible to most people. And I think that's also kind of what I want to push, where it's like, I think some people think, oh, tennis, I need to go there and spend like $2,000 to get a ticket. Because I think that's kind of the from the outside looking in, that's what people seem like it is,
And
because people always think, oh.
From what you've said about the US Open, seems to be the vibe from that.
Yes, exactly. But also I think, especially when you are a casual fan and you're just thinking, or you only know a few names and you're like, oh, I just want to go see Carlos Alcaraz. And you're like, oh, where is he playing? Oh, Stadium One. Oh, what's the ticket price for that? That's a lot. I think it's best to go for something like a ground pass, see Carlos practice, and then go see other matches. So I think it is pretty accessible. You can also watch his match on the big screen that's out there afterwards. So I think there's a way to strategize as to make it more accessible to more people, for sure. Did that answer your question? I think I kind of rambled a little bit.
With the fan experience, like it does, and it's interesting. You're saying like older crowd, no, but maybe a little bit more seasoned about tennis, but it's a little bit out of the loop, for at least for the opening few days. And then as the tournament gets on, it maybe gets a little bit of a struggle to get on the main courts and so on.
Oh, yeah, what I was going to say, because I think you also mentioned a little bit about the atmosphere and stuff. So, I mean, again, it is a party vibe here. There's a whole middle section that's just surrounded by these. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's the no matches are happening right now, but the line calling they just did a test of the out sign, which is so funny. But anyway, um, it it's a party vibe. There are people just lounging around. I am pretty sure there are people who come here to just hang, to be part of the scene. The Bryan Brothers band was playing, so there's a little like stage where they have like meet the player events, and bands are playing. Also, there are a lot of events happening around the tournament. So not part of the tournament, but around the tournament. So yesterday I went to this one that was hosted by On, and it was like a mini tournament. There's another one today. I don't think I'm going to make it to the one today, but it's called Dead Ball, and they are having a tennis tournament on every surface.
Okay.
So there's a club nearby that has courts. They have grass courts, hard courts, and clay courts. So they're going to do a mini tournament with people rotating around all the surfaces.
I mean, not only is that tremendously fun, the first thing I thought was, how on earth are you managing to keep a grass court alive in the desert?
This is something I have asked myself since I've been here, because where we park is basically the desert. It's sand. So it's just compacted sand. And that's where you first realize, oh, really, we are in the desert. But there's so much green grass here. There's so much green grass. I'm like, how are they keeping these lawns alive? I do not want to look at the water bill. But yeah, so that seems like a really fun event. You know what's also really cool? I have met a lot of people that I know from Instagram and other sort of like tennis creators, and just like walking around, I would recognize people and be like, oh my God, I know you. And maybe it's California, I don't know, but I just feel like here you can walk up to people and just say hello. And it's been very, very nice. I mean, for me at press, there are a lot of, journalists who I've read their bylines, and they're just there. Chris Clary is just there, and I can say hello. Matt Futman is just there, and I say hi. So it's been an event where I think it's been very welcoming. And I mean, I'm a New Yorker for life. I'm going to love the US Open first, but I mean, Indian Wells is fighting for very, very, they're second, but they could almost be first for me so far.
It does seem to be that for a lot of people. I'm not surprised. I think, playing tennis in California, you've got the weather to do it kind of most of the year. And it's interesting. I put a tweet out saying, is Indian Wells on anyone else's like to visit list from like my followers? I got people answering me who weren't following me before. I got 150 replies to that tweet, which is the most I've ever had. And I don't think I would have got a level of response to any tournament outside of a slam. Other tournaments outside of a slam, not even places like Miami or Cincinnati, which there are a few very diehard Cincinnati fans out there, very grumpy that I was promoting Indian Wells. But like, or people like Madrid and Rome, maybe more that vibe. I'm always going to be like, Wimbledon is it, but I feel like Indian Wells sounds like it's kind of got that nice middle ground between the more chilled atmosphere of Wimbledon with the slightly more energy that you would get from a US Open. Is kind of the vibe I'm getting from it. And for sure, this tournament is on my, if I somehow get enough money to buy the plane tickets and be able to spend it all on tennis, and somehow I have enough left over to, eat. Then I'm going to do it. Well, I know we're limited for time, Anastasia, so I just wanted to ask you, because I know people are probably listening to us going, oh, hey, where's my usual Ground Pass update? We're not necessarily going to do a super in-depth, this is what happened type thing. Just quick bullet. I'm going to do quick bullet points and not go into detail. Last week, Katie Bolter won in San Diego, one in Austin. And then on the ATP side, you had Alex de Minaur winning in Acapulco. You had Ugo Humbert winning in Dubai, and we had Sebastian Baez winning another title in two titles in 2 weeks in Santiago. That's kind of the headlines. what would you say the main stories have been from Indian Wells so far on court?
Ooh, main stories on court, which is really funny because we can sort of talk about a little bit the winner of the Austin 250. How do you pronounce your
I
name?
believe it's one way, but I have to check that with
One way,
you
yeah.
have to check that with my Chinese friend. I haven't had an opportunity to do that yet.
Yes. And I think, by the way, for everyone listening, because I mean, tennis is such an international sport, but if you ever have an issue with pronouncing a player's name, if you go to either the WTA or ATP website, there is, and you go to their player profile, most of them have sort of like an audio. But she played against Qin Wen yesterday and beat her. It was, I mean, it's pretty under the radar, I think, so far in terms because the Arena Sabalenka match had just happened, and I think that's definitely what everyone was talking about was that Arena Sabalenka and Peyton Stearns match. But that win that she got over Qin Wen was definitely calling card is the wrong word, but she definitely announced herself. I think she just won a title, and now she's beaten a seeded player at a Masters 1000. So I think for sure that would be it. And what would be a Ground Pass podcast without talking about either Sinner or Carlos? Like, hello, that's our brand. But Carlos Alcaraz had his first round match, and it was a nervy one. He lost the first set in a tiebreak, but then I don't think I've actually ever seen Carlos do this, but it was the first time I thought, oh, he's gonna be a big champion. I mean, he already is. He's a 2-time Grand Slam winner, but he lost that first set and then just flipped a switch and was like, this person. He was playing Matteo Rinaldi, who's a great player. People actually do compare him to Carlos, and he just the score line after that was 6-love 6-1. He I think he wanted it to be 6-love 6-love. Like he was like he's not going to win another game. He was that mad about losing that first set that he just closed out the match that way. We got to talk to him in press. I'll put a little bit of a clip here of how he deals with nerves, especially with his ankle and stuff.
Obviously, this is a really special tournament for me, and I want to do it well. And obviously this is the first match playing a high intensity, and I didn't know how it's gonna respond the ankle, and it was a lot of things coming to my mind. And I couldn't be focused 100% in the match, and it made me getting a little bit nervous. But I have to deal with it. But I didn't deal with the nerves very well in the first set. Moving, let's say, different, hitting the ball different. My game is playing aggressive all the time and try to stay calm and waiting for my chances. When you get nervous, you don't think about it. You don't hit the ball as good as you want. You don't move as good as you want, and I think that's the big difference. Thank you.
I feel like those are the two big things, other than the arena match, that has happened so far.
Yeah, I think, and that's because there's been some questions in the tennis fandom about Carlos's motivation and him living up to expectations. And I think a win like that, where he gets annoyed that he's lost a set and demolishes an opponent, is the kind of thing you would expect to see from a Djokovic or a Nadal. That kind of wounded pride unleashing something in him, which is interesting. As you said, Sinner's kind of progressing. I think, the men's tournament so far, it's hard for me to say exactly what the kind of the overriding vibe of it is, but I think it's kind of business as usual. There's not been any real shocks. Andy Murray caused some waves by somehow beating David Goffin, who is someone who's been very confident in his career, and then put up a deep
By the
with
way,
Rublev.
I was just going to say, this is an American tournament, so most of the Americans playing their matches have been absolutely packed. Andy Murray's match against Andrei Rublev, the stadium was shaking. It was people just screaming Andy Murray, almost willing him to just win. Everyone there just wanted him to win so bad, and he didn't. But that's why you go to live tournaments, because that stuff can't be translated on TV. You'll never get that experience unless you're like actually at the tournament.
Yeah. So there you go. So Andy Murray played Rublev. It was a very close first set. Andy Murray could have won the set. He didn't. And then Rublev closed it out in the end. But Murray kind of in his very much talking like it's his farewell tour now. And he's fed up being asked about it. That's what came up during your press conference with him. He's saying he's not playing after summer, but I think people keep asking for more details and he's not willing to give them.
Yeah, but also it's like, who cares about the details? I think with players like Nadal, Roger, who's gone now, and Andy, who's also, he's saying he might not play past the summer. There's so many other questions to ask, about their plans for the future, what he intends to do with tennis. And I just wish people would focus on that and ask him those questions. Like, who cares when it's going to happen? He's had such a great and illustrious career. It's almost like, why don't you just want to figure out what his thoughts are on the current game? And, I don't know. There's so many, I think, other more fascinating questions than when exactly are you going to retire? Give us a date and time and event.
Yeah.
That actually seems boring to me. I'm like, I don't care when, just I want his knowledge. And almost like there are two players I really think I love listening to their interviews just to get their insight. Daniil Medvedev is one. Andy is, right there with him as well. Like, I love hearing their thoughts on tennis and the sport and what can change or be better. So
yeah. Okay. So yeah, we should be listening to more of those two. We'll probably be hearing more from Medvedev than Murray over the next few years. But anyway, well, Murray might be a commentator. Quite unlikely, but he'll probably get asked about stuff a fair bit if he shows up. Women's side, I think, obviously I'm biased, but for me, that's where the interests have been, because we've got a fair few players on the comeback trail who've made good progress. Angie Kerber has looking the best since she's come back. Naomi Osaka is looking incredible. Caroline Wozniacki,
incredible and happy.
Yes,
incredible and happy. She's looking so happy on court. I got to ask her about that yesterday. I'll insert the clip here.
You seem to be having a lot of fun on court. Am I getting the right impression?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I think, like, for me, I just want to have a lot more fun on the court. I think, like, I don't want to say in the beginning of, like, my comeback-ish in Australia, I was really hard on myself, and I found myself not really celebrating just being on the court. So I think in this tournament, I just really wanted to emphasize that I don't expect myself to win every match, but I want to have fun and enjoy the moments, while I can.
But she is just joyful. Like, Samsonova is just a hitter. Like, there's some points that she gets that you're just like, how did she do that? And every time she hit one of those points, Naomi would smile almost like she was like, oh, that was great. You know what I mean? And so I think she's really enjoying her time on court. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, Naomi enjoying life is much better, and like she's been looking scary good her last two matches. Got Caroline Wozniacki as a factor as well. She's made progress. Emma Raducanu is in round 3. She's got Sabalenka next. Nearly didn't, because the other story is, of the top 4 seeds, 3 are left, but it could easily have been won after yesterday, because both Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka had to dig themselves out of trouble. Sabalenka had to save 3 match points against Peyton Stearns, who was serving for the match, and Coco Gauff had to come back from 4-love down the deciding set with her opponent Clara Burrell serving for the match to win it in a tiebreak. But the Sabalenka Stearns match was the one that was all over my feed this morning, and it was very nice to see that it was, even though Sabalenka won, it was full of praise for Peyton Stearns. And so I've only caught the 15-20 minute highlights. I can't watch the full match on catch up, not yet anyway. But for me, that's just caused a lot of generation. And so that's the most recent hype we've gotten. You've talked about this match a fair bit.
Yeah, this was, I mean, up until the last minute, it was still anyone could win it. Like, anyone could win it. I remember when it went to 6-all in the third set tiebreak, it was just like, oh, well, I mean, it was hands up in the air. It was like anything could happen. And you're right in the sense that, I think I tweeted that there were no losers. Nobody lost in that match. Everyone won, including tennis and including tennis fans, because that's just what you want out of a tennis match, to see the number 2 in the world pushed. And then for a player like Peyton Stearns, who I think is built for big stadium tennis, just blossom. And it was a packed house. Like, no seat was empty, because it was just the mat where you wanted to be, for sure. But yeah, it's been a great run so far, but that match, I would say, was a hit.
So I guess we should probably wrap up here, because you've got places to be.
Yeah.
And the play starts in 45 minutes as of when we're recording. But thanks so much for still wanting to stick to the schedule, Anastasia, and record something. And it's been very special doing something from a tournament. And I hope everyone listening, you all enjoyed as well. Let us know what you think. Would you like to hear more kind of insights like this from on the ground in the tournaments? We hope you do, because next time, Anastasia is still on the road, because you're going to be in Miami and you're going to be bringing us your insights from there.
We're going to Miami, baby. But yes, I am going to Miami. Excited for that. For people who don't know, why would you know? But it's my birthday month. And last year for my birthday was the first time I went to Miami. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to do this every year for my birthday, because from where I live, Miami is actually not that hard to get to. It's very accessible and it's easy. So I'm going to do it again. So I am going to go to Miami, and I will be bringing Ground Pass with me. So that will be our second Ground Pass on-site venue. And, let us know what you think about these. We're trying to get Nick to maybe go on a European tour one of these days. I think you said you got your Wimbledon tickets, right?
I do have a yeah.
I fear for the day that we release the video of these podcasts, because we get into some antics here. But you did get your Wimbledon tickets, right?
I did, yes. For those who are wondering why there was a weird gap, I just broke Anastasia again. I did, yes. So it's interesting. When we go into how to get tickets for Wimbledon, we are going to have to do 2 shows. One near Wimbledon and one in September. Reasons why, we will explain. But yes, I did get Wimbledon tickets. I got them through a means that maybe not many people know about legally. And I am going to be going for the second Tuesday and the first week, Tuesday and Wednesday, with my mum. And we're going to be, we've got court 2 tickets both days. So we're going to enjoy kind of a Grounds Pass Plus experience there. So I am planning on kind of bringing you updates from any other UK tournaments I can make. I'm going to try and make it to Birmingham this year, because it's literally half an hour's drive from me, more or less, maybe an hour. But yeah, I'm going to try and sort of bring you up to date, and I can probably do some little mini stuff for attending a British events for those British listeners that we have.
Yes. Please. Well, I'm excited for that. I want to hear that. I want to meet Nick's mom on ground pass on site. That'll be great.
My mum is going to take some persuading to come on the podcast.
I could be very persuasive, but anyway, gotta go, gotta run, because yes, the matches do start in under 45 minutes. This has been great. Follow us on all social medias. Please leave a review on whatever podcast listening platform that you are on. Apple Podcasts is great, and actually write a review. Maybe leave us some questions that we can answer on a future show. But yeah, it's been great again, Nick.
Been great as always, Anastasia. I look forward to hearing more from you from Indian Wells and from Miami.
Bye.
Bye.